now. Hi, everybody. We're here for session 2 of Gauntlet Comics Fellowship, The Eyes of the Underlord. We will be continuing with the story we laid out last time. As a reminder, this is a Gauntlet community game. If you want to learn more about the Gauntlet, you can visit gauntlet-rpg.com to see all about the Gauntlet, learn how you can join the Gauntlet, play games with us, and also, because this is a Gauntlet game, this means that we use the Gauntlet's community code of conduct, inclusivity policy, and the Gauntlet's tools of the table, which means we have set up safety tools for this particular game, which I'm running through Roll20's website. And on the Roll20 website, we have a sheet for all the players to add to called Lines and Veils. The lines are things that we will not touch on in the campaign at all. The veils are things that might happen but will not happen on screen. The players have all contributed to that list so that I know things that I need to avoid. And most of those are pretty straightforward, and I don't have any questions about them right now. Also, we'll be using the X card. So if anything comes up that people didn't anticipate, or anything comes up in the game that basically makes someone not have a good time, they can lay out the X card. They can make a symbol of the X on their camera. They can type it into the chat. Anything that they're comfortable doing, they can stop me in the middle of the whatever I'm going through or whatever anybody else is going through and say, hey, I need to X card that. There will be no explanation needed about the subject matter of the X card. We may just have to get a question as to what exactly we need to excise from the game so that we can keep everybody having fun and enjoying themselves. All right. All of that being said, we will be bringing in a new player this week who will be joining us. So will be Alexi, and everybody will be introducing themselves again, giving us a quick synopsis of their characters and their people. So that Alexi kind of has a basis to go on when he introduces us to his character. We'll start from there. Let's see, Bethany or Kyle, would one of you like to go first to introduce your characters?
I can go. Yep. Hi, I'm Bethany. I am playing Odell Underwood, who is just kind of an ordinary person who got lost down here and then decided to stay. Possibly because they had some legal trouble on the surface, but they don't talk about that.
Okay, and what playbook are you using for Odell?
The Squire.
Okay, and Kyle, could you tell us about yourself and your character?
You might be muted, my friend.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I'm Kyle, he, him. I'll be playing Regina Firewheel with the dwarf playbook, she, her. And they're a sort of madcap inventor types. So yeah, she and her assistant and her guard/minder basically have been sent out here to deal with the Overlord. Excellent.
Oh, and I forgot that. I'm glad, Kyle, you caught me up on that. I'm Chris Newton. I'll be facilitating this whole thing, and I use he/him pronouns. I'll be playing in the jargon of this particular game, the Overlord, the ultimate big bad, the guy everybody wants to stop, and the guy who's trying to ruin everything for everybody. So that will be me. Hello. And then we'll move on to Alexi so that he can introduce himself and his character.
Hey, I'm Alexi Sargent, he, him. You can follow all my gaming endeavors online at Cloven Pine Games. So that's at Cloven Pine Games on Twitter and Cloven Pine Games on itch.io, where you can download games of my creation, including the Great Soul Train robbery recently successfully kickstarted during Zine Quest. So I'll be picking up the Orc playbook for this game of Fellowship, and I'm excited to define this orc. I guess first off, his name is Dapperdew Axebreaker, and Chris, tell me what I should say from there to introduce the character.
Okay, well, because you're coming into this as though it was your first session, we have a couple of questions that everybody answers about their people and about their hero. You've given us your hero's playbook and his name or their name. Is it he, him, or they, them?
He, him for the orc as well.
Okay. First off, tell us about your hero. Tell us why you, in particular, have been chosen to be your people's champion to face the threat of the Overlord, and then tell us 3 facts about your people, things that everybody knows about the orcs. Like if people think of your people, they think of these 3 things.
Yeah, great. So Dapperdew Axebreaker, as his name indicates, is a mighty warrior who has broken many an axe in his day, and he was chosen as the champion of the orcs because he is scary as hell, which is a defined bit of my gear, in fact. So I can rely on that for a special ability sometimes. So I think just 6'7", muscle bound green guy with a spiky red mohawk, and lots of little kind of mushroomy bits growing off of him, because in this universe, one of the things people know about orcs is that they're more akin to fungus than to any other living creatures, and they are in fact the creations of the old empire of fungus people, the mushroom men, who were great scientists and engineers, and they engineered the orcs to be a warlike group to serve as muscle for the mushroom men. I think sometime in the past, the orcs rebelled and have forged their own existence, defining meaning for themselves. Created by the mushroom men is one of the things people all know about the orcs. Another thing is that anyone can become an orc. The orcs have ways to turn you into an orc. If you come to the orcs and say, I admire your people's anarchic freedom and I want to be one of you, they'll be like, all right, eat this fungus and join the club. And then the orcs worship something they call the overmoon, and they abominate the undermoon. So if this is all right, Chris, I'm just kind of defining a bit of the world here, that there is some sort of a moon down here in this fantasy land inside of the earth, and the orcs hate it. They hate the undermoon so much. They think the true moon is the overmoon, which is far above in the surface world, and they share legends about what the overmoon is amongst themselves, and think that someday the overmoon will come down and take its rightful place and push out the usurping undermoon.
So in their mythology, is the undermoon sort of like a Gnostic demiurge? Like basically, it's like an evil god, basically, like a pretender god.
Yeah. They might not use that terminology, but they definitely think of the undermoon as malevolent and and an enemy of the orcs in particular. And so they'll often greet each other by saying, "Curses to the undermoon."
I love that. Okay, so that's our 3 true things about the orcs. Okay, why has Dapper been chosen in particular to represent the orcish community against the threat of the Overlord?
They picked someone who was big and strong and intimidating, because they had to. I think something that kind of was mentioned last time is probably the orcs were the first hit by the Overlord. So the orcs might have sustained heavy losses when the Overlord first started throwing his weight around. Does the Overlord have pronouns?
The Overlord uses they, them.
All right. When the Overlord started throwing their weight around and making an impression on Camdir, the orcs were immediately hard hit. So I think the orcs who kind of regrouped and and started charting a way forward, just put forward their biggest and scariest warrior because they thought that's the way to go. You got to be bigger and scarier than the Overlord to beat them.
Okay. All right. I think that makes sense. And going into to that, what do you think? What do you think the Overlord saw, or what did the orcs think the Overlord saw in them to make them their first target? Like what about the orcs was perceived by the Overlord to be that big of a threat, or what did the orcs think made them such a threat?
Yeah, I think the orcs assume it is their their strong militaristic culture that the Overlord perceives as a threat, but possibly Dapper Do wonders if maybe it's something a little more to do with the way that the orcs can assimilate other people. That since the orcs can let other people become orcs, and this Overlord seems to be all about kind of making everything into themselves. Dapper Do wonders if, in fact, it wasn't just their strength of arms, but their ability to welcome newcomers that caused the Overlord to target them. But those are just theories. Who can know the mind of the Overlord?
Indeed. Well, apparently the halflings know how to really tick it off. So we know that now. The second part of this is that we're going to establish a bond that you or your people, you in particular, I guess at this point, have with the Overlord, and I will go through the Overlord's possible bonds with you. And these are all, these are all just not particularly positive things, so be prepared for that. The Overlord destroyed your hometown. The Overlord has caused great harm to your people, which either one of those could possibly make sense. The Overlord killed someone important to you. You killed someone important to the Overlord. Let's see. Your people serve the Overlord now, which would be really weird the way things are going, but it could be an interesting twist. The weakness has already been chosen, as has the wound, and as has the secret admiration for the Overlord.
Let's go with the Overlord destroyed my hometown.
Okay.
Because I think seems very plausible that the orcs were first hit, and specifically the kind of town of find something good and fungusy. Specifically, the town that Dapper Do comes from. It's a charming little orc town called Basidiocarp, and it's been wiped off the map by the armies of the Overlord.
Okay. Let's see. Could you spell that for me?
I will. I'll just drop it into the chat if that's okay.
Oh, sure. That'll be fine. There we go. I will copy and paste that into my Overlord bonds, because I was just hearing it. I was like, I have no idea how to spell that. Okay. All right. So the Overlord destroyed Basidiocarp. All right. Now, here's another question. We heard that in the last session that the Overlord's one impossible thing that they have already done is they basically transformed an entire lake into some sort of incredibly dense resinous substance that apparently encased everything living in the lake in some sort of suspended animation, and no one has been able to enter the lake. No one can get anything out of that lake. It's just like frozen in this sort of resiny substance. You can't even break any of the resin off. It's just there. the entire lake has effectively been like what looks like instantaneously converted into this resin, and everything's still trapped in it.
Yeah.
So did something like that happen, or was it just simply like a raw military attack? Like the Overlord threw in their corrupted army and just wiped the orcs out through force of numbers.
I think we had like a big moat around the town that we kind of trusted in that to protect us, and the Overlord was able to turn the entire moat into this strange substance the way that they do, and then march in and wipe out our defenses.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, I did notice something, Alexi. I think on the Roll20 site, you might Roll20 might still have your audio and video chat enabled on there. So you might want to make sure and go into the options on Roll20 itself and turn those off, so that you don't get feedback, because that can show up sometimes.
Okay, I thought I'd turned both of those off because I don't see a little video for me.
Yeah, I think the little pink chat box is on the corner of your icon on the Roll20 site. Usually that means that one of those two functions is still on, so it might be the audio chat option.
If it displays pause, does that mean it is paused, or does that mean that I can click it to pause it?
Yeah, I think it just shows pause now. So
okay, so that I fixed the issue.
Okay, I think so. As long as you're not getting feedback, it's good. Usually, you'd be the one that would hear some sort of audio feedback.
Oh, I wasn't, but
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great,
cool.
All right, so now let's go into our next portion of this. Alexi, you will need to choose one other player, and you will have to tell us a rumor or superstition that the orcs hold about their people.
Yep. I think it's got to be Odell, from this mysterious stranger from the surface world. And I think how does this sound, Bethany? I think Odell's made like a little bit of a name for themselves in. Oh, did I?
You're echoing a lot.
Is that better? Did that solve that?
Yeah. It was funny. At first, it just sounded like you got a little bit louder, and then like the echoes got further and further apart, and it was completely incomprehensible by the time. But you're fine now.
Is there any way to turn it off more than I've already turned it off, or have I gotten it as off as it?
You can click the little cog symbol up there above the chat.
And you can tell it to broadcast nothing and to receive nothing, and that should shut it off.
Yeah. Okay.
All the way to the bottom.
I want to broadcast to others nothing. I want to receive from others nothing. Cool. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Then click reconnect, and it will reset those settings so that it takes you off. There we go. It just did. Yeah. Okay, we're good.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem. It actually it wasn't like painful feedback. It was just very confusing.
So I was going to generate a rumor about you, about Odell. Does that work?
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm positing that maybe Odell has made like a bit of a name for themselves in kind of the underground, like, and specifically the sort of less reputable parts of the underground. And so the rumor that the orcs and that Dapper do believe is that Odell came down from the Overmoon into our underworld, and thus would know things about the Overmoon itself, and perhaps its ultimate trajectory to return and displace the usurping Undermoon. So that's the rumor.
Okay, that is a hell of a rumor.
Okay, so we have a possible emissary of the Undermoon amongst the Fellowship, or an emissary of the Overmoon.
Of the Overmoon, not the cursed Undermoon.
Yes, sorry. Okay, all right. So let's see. We've got that now. Bethany.
Yeah.
You can't tell them whether or not that's true or false.
Okay.
But I think one of you, either you or Kyle, will get to come up with a rumor that you believe, or a superstition your people have about the orcs. Who would like to do that?
If I recall from listening to the last episode, Kyle and Pearl kind of got to do these for each other with the dwarves and the halflings. So Bethany, definitely you have first dibs on the orcs if you're excited to generate an orc rumor.
The orcs. So they were created by these mushroom scientists, right? And they've kind of like broken free and declared independence from the mushroom scientists.
Yeah, those are things that people know.
Okay. The rumor is that they haven't really broken free. Like the scientists have some ability that to call on them, and like they're like sleeper agents for the scientists.
Ooh, yeah, I like that. Yeah, I can neither confirm nor deny this rumor, but that is fascinating for it to exist as a rumor.
Excellent. Okay. So, all right. So we've got rumors and suspicions. Now, now we're working on personal bonds with the rest of the fellowship. I think we'll kind of work around. Lexi, I think you get to choose 4 bonds, I believe, as an orc. It should be on your playbook.
Let me pull those up. There are so many pages to these playbooks. All right. Oh, fascinating. I wonder if Regina Firewheel seeks power like mine, but is not yet ready.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, because you're the scientist, always searching for more things. But I maybe think you're not ready for what the orcs have to offer yet.
You're not ready. You're not ready to chomp on those shrooms yet, I guess.
Not ready to partake and to become stronger like we are. Yeah, and should I pull out another one? Let's see. Oh, yeah. I think I will use my strength to keep Odell safe. Given that I have this, this belief that Odell might be an emissary from the Overmoon, and it's very important for Odell to remain safe. I get to write these things down. Should I generate one with Pearl's halfling, or should I wait till next time to do that?
Let's wait till next time to do that, because that'll give her some input on it. If you have like a couple of ideas, just be ready to float those, and we'll see what she says.
Absolutely.
Now, let's see. Bethany and Kyle, would either of you like to choose or suggest a bond with the orc?
I think that Regina grudgingly respects his style.
That makes sense to me.
Oh, that's interesting. Like what sort of apparel, what sort of clothing choices or traditional items does your average orc wear? Like, what is your style? What is Dapperdu's style?
Mostly axes.
I didn't realize that meant like clothing style. I thought.
Oh no, I was that just started a question for me. I was presuming you meant like the standard orc, like badass attitude type thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to pull that into your question. That was a follow-up question of mine. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I picked out patchwork armor. I think there's kind of, yeah, I think it's kind of like fairly mismatched, bits and pieces. But uh, uh, Dapper Do can make axes out of almost anything, and so like strapped all over, to like back and arms and hip and shins, or just like a bunch of axes, and so they're always in like slightly different places, between times you see Dapper Do, but there's always a number of axes there, and they're as much a part of his look as anything else.
So basically, we're rolling. At any given time, roll 2d6 to see how many axes Dapper 2 is carrying.
Yeah, sure.
Let's see, Bethany. Does Odell have a bond that might work for the orc?
I mean, the really obvious one is that he looks out for me, but I kind of like the idea that how much has Dapper Do told Odell about this rumor?
Why do you ask? What are you hoping for there?
Oh, I'm just like, maybe if they don't know, they're misinterpreting this like protectiveness.
I think that's kind of fun. Yeah. We're like, because it's the rumor that all the orcs understand. I sort of assume that that's what we're thinking, but you don't know that we think you're from the moon at all.
Cool. Okay.
Does that work for the bond you were considering?
It does, and I actually realized I misread the bond, but I like my misreading better, which is that I don't know why, but Dapper Do doesn't really trust me as what I saw it as. It actually is really trusts me. But I like the idea that he doesn't trust me. He's always looking, like he's always staring at me like he expects me to do something terrible. Like he doesn't trust me.
What? How realistically? How could you necessarily interpret a mushroom person's stare? I mean, it's like
right. The other option would be I think blank likes me romantically, but it's hard to believe, and like that could work too. Either one.
I can see so many ways to that for this to go gloriously terribly. I love it.
Which one would you rather, Alexi?
I'm up for the doesn't really trust me.
Okay.
Because that's a fun misinterpretation of what's going on, I think.
Cool.
Okay. We'll hold off on the bonds with Hamfast, our halfling, for next time. So that will lead us, I think, into mopping up a little bit from last time, because at the end of last session, we did not get to our end of session move. And normally I would feel terrible about forgetting to do that, but the author of the Fellowship book says that he forgets to do it fairly often himself, so I don't feel quite as bad. So the end of session move in Fellowship is basically a list of 3 questions. For each yes answer to these questions, you can choose one of 3 options, and you can choose any one option more than once if you want to. So our first question for end of session is, during the last session, did you save or protect a community in need? At the end of last session, you were on the run from the Overlord's minions and his general. You managed to escape with some sort of communications device, but you did not encounter any community, nor did you protect an endangered community at that point. So I think, unless you guys have some other interpretation of that question for me, I think the answer to that first question is no. Second question, did you strike a blow against the Overlord and their minions? I think you did that. Based on what happened, you got that communication device, you damaged the general's leader of the pack stat. So you said you did strike a blow. So that's a yes. So that's one. That's one choice out of the options list. The third question is, did you learn more about the world and its people? And I think we did that as well, because during the first session, we outlined all the characters that were theirs, races, species, what was going on with them personally, what was going on with their communities in general. So that's another yes. So you have two options or two choices you can make out of this following list. First, you may choose the option that each fellowship player refreshes one piece of their gear to its full value. Second, you can choose each fellowship player chooses one stat to heal. It doesn't have to be their stat. And three, the fellowship and the overlord each choose one player to level up. You cannot be chosen to level up if you are already the highest level player, or you have already been chosen to level up this session. And you can choose one of those options more than once. We had a brief discussion off air, during which I believe the fellowship indicated that they would like to make the decision to choose the level up option twice. Is that still everybody's decision? Okay. All right. So I will be straight with you. I'm as the overlord. The choice I will make first is to level up the overlord. So the overlord will get a level up out of this. After that, I will choose to level up whichever player the fellowship. After that, if you choose it the second time, I would choose to level up whatever player has not gotten a level up out of your first choice. So, what is your decision?
Yeah, let's level someone up.
Okay. Let's see. Bethany, who would you choose to level up given the available options?
I mean, it's just three of us, right?
Mhm.
I think the dwarf needs to be more powerful.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. Kyle, what is your choice?
I mean, we're all getting a level up, so does it matter?
I mean, I'm trying to poll just so I get used to doing this.
Dapper do, I guess.
Okay.
Thank you kindly, and I will choose for Odell, our squire, to get leveled up.
Okay. So as we go around, you will have first round. We'll say the dwarf. The second choice and the dwarf and the overlord in the first round, and the second round it will be Odell and Dapperdew. So everybody gets a level up. All of you who are present this session get to raise your level of your character, which gives you a number of options. Feel free to go ahead and choose those now.
I am taking another orc custom move, and I'm taking Iron Stomach. You can eat things no one else would ever try to. When you fill your belly, you can spend uses from anything as if they had the food tag instead of their actual tags, which, like, it certainly feels like a fungus orc should have that move. So I'm happy to have the bonus level and get that, in my starting loadout.
Sounds great.
I just raised my wisdom by 1.
Okay, that's always good.
I raised my grace by 1.
Okay, as the overlord, just so because all you guys will know what's going on with the overlord. Okay. And if you think your playbooks are long, you should see the overlord's playbook. Okay. I think the overlord is going to choose the overlord custom move, Evil's Touch. That will mean that damage dealt by the overlord or his generals will be necrotic, which means that it is incredibly difficult to heal. If you wanted to take a look at the necrotic tag, Necrotic attacks cause wounds that do not heal naturally. When you take damage from a necrotic attack, mark that stat twice. The first mark cannot be removed by filling your belly. You need healing to properly recover from a necrotic wound. Any companions or enemies who are dealt damage by a necrotic weapon are in despair until it is healed and cannot help or harm you. So,
Oof, that's powerful.
yep, the Overlord's minions, the Overlord's generals. Now, this only applies to the Overlord's general, which he only has one right now, and the Overlord themselves. So, if you can, try to avoid that general next time, because he's already kind of mad at you guys. That general is a little bit perturbed. Okay. So I'm going to add that to the Overlord's customs sheet on here. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions about their level up? Okay. Okay. Now, as a part of the Overlord's advancement, the Overlord will forge a bond with anyone, fellowship or otherwise. So, I think I'm going to do something. I think I'm going to do something that pushes things in a direction I think I like. The Overlord is going to forge a bond with the mushroom scientists.
Oh no.
So now, and the mushrooms and the I'm just going to call them mushroom scientists because I can't remember us giving them an actual name beyond that.
Yeah, I think that's just what they were called.
And that bond reads that the mushroom scientists have surrendered their research to me. So the Overlord has all of the scientific research and discoveries up until this point that the mushroom scientists have made. So, dun dun dun. Next, the Overlord gets to advance the plans. The Overlord, and we were going to go through this last time, and I didn't, so I apologize for that. The Overlord has a core move that deals with their master plans. At the beginning of the game, I have two master plans. One is to seize the Sylvan Sapphire from Rhinum, the plant kingdom. Plan number two is to destroy or co-opt a community, and that community that he has targeted are the dwarves. So he has targeted, he is the Overlord. They have targeted the dwarvish community. So I think Regina, you probably have heard some rumors of that. And you may be getting some information about these plans and what the Overlord is doing from this communicator, which you hijacked last time. So I think you're hearing this, and you suddenly realize that the Overlord is moving forces based on what you're discovering from this communicator toward the plant kingdom of Rhinum, and the Overlord has sent not an army, but emissaries to the great dwarvish university in the dwarvish capital. So those are the two plans that and they have advanced one step, which is the Overlord is actually like deploying deploying things. So that's what you know so far. Now, based on that knowledge that you have now gotten from this communicator, and we'll say that Dapperdew managed to catch up with you all after you had escaped the general's clutches with some deft use of explosives and capybaras. Not all together, but like differently. You didn't blow up the capybaras. And Hamfast wanted to make sure the capybaras escaped from the general, since he was worried that the general and his band of monsters might still try to harm them. So we'll say that Hamfast have led the capybaras off to safety, and that's where they are right now. They will catch up with you later, because that halfling can show up at the darndest places. So we'll see where he comes in next. And Dapperdew caught up with you guys shortly after that. So let's talk about which direction do you think you would need to go in as a fellowship? What should be your first step? Do you want to try and maybe counter this emissary to the dwarves, or do you think you need to stop the Overlord from seizing this the Sylvan Sapphire, which will almost certainly be a new source of power for the Overlord?
Personally, I'm going to urge we go after the Sapphire. I think the dwarves can handle it.
You aren't worried about what the Overlord might do to your people, Regina?
Yeah, we've seen tougher. We'll be fine.
Don't underestimate them.
Okay, and I think also, I think if you guys had remember from last time, the Overlord themselves have not taken the field of battle in a long time. So the last descriptions you have, and of course Hamfast probably told you of their encounter with the Overlord. But the Overlord is a large, just monstrous figure, and the monstrosity of it is also related to their body structure. They are made up of this sort of conglomeration of all these different pieces and parts. Almost like somebody took the idea someone took a lot of Jack Kirby like robot art and just sort of squished it together with stone statues and golems and all sorts of things. And the Overlord has this otherworldly eyes. Its head seems to be some sort of swiveling contraption. And as it turns around, if you've ever seen maybe the old Masters of the Universe figures, the thing called Triclops that had the sort of spinning eye, part of its head has that sort of swivel. And three of the eyes are currently, three of the eye sockets are currently empty. One of them contains like a single lens. And that lens is what projects those energy beams that gave Hamfast that terrible burn. And also is, you've heard rumors that same beam is what caused the lake to turn into that resin. So, and also the tales you have heard about the Overlord reflect that they are unspeakably strong. Like, no, if the Overlord appears, like anything is just rubble to their touch. Like they will smash through any and everything in front of them. They're a walking juggernaut. Just if they're there, they're unstoppable. And if even if someone or some community does have a weapon that can seemingly break the Overlord's body, the Overlord is an impervious amalgamation of all these different parts. So if you break them apart, the parts just cobble themselves back together. They roll back together into a lump, and the Overlord reforms in a very short period of time. Like it's kind of like breaking a giant sentient bunch of Legos.
So we should probably get there and get out with this thing that they need before they can get there.
Indeed. And I just warn you, Regina, my people are the mightiest in this land, but our defenses fell when the eyes of the Overlord looked upon them. You dwarves have not partaken of the strength of the orcs. How can you be sure they will give the Overlord even a moment of resistance?
He hasn't sent armies at us yet. It's just an emissary. We can handle an emissary.
Dapperdew kind of shrugs and sort of spits on the ground, and like possibly a tiny little mushroom just sort of like sprouts up where Dapperdew has spat on the ground. But he's willing to kind of shrug his shoulders and resheath his axes and go along in the towards the plant kingdom of Rhineham, if that's the place you want to lead us.
Okay, you guys, as you're having this discussion, you do have a little bit of downtime. So if anybody needs to take a moment to fill their belly, to heal up any stats that have been damaged, you have some time to do that. And then I think we'll make use of one of the more fun mechanics of Fellowship, which is the long journey narration, because it's going to take you guys a little bit of a trek to get to Rhineham from where you currently are. The Plant Kingdom is their own place. They are secluded. They have diplomatic relations with a lot of people, but they are also very zealous in guarding their borders. So it takes a while to actually get to the forest where this Sylvan Sapphire is said to be. So with the long journey, this is a sort of a shared narration. It doesn't involve many roles, if any, but it does involve basically swapping narrative authority between each of the players as you're going. All right. So during this journey, each of you will describe one event that has happened along the way, starting with whichever player would like to begin. The Overlord may give you a framing question, so I may give you like kind of a starting point, and then you describe the event, basically whatever the event or obstacle that you had to get past, and then you pick another of the players, and that player will describe how the Fellowship managed to get past that obstacle, and then then the next player will give an obstacle and pass the narrative along to the third player to describe how the Fellowship gets past that obstacle. And then finally, that third player will describe the last obstacle of the journey. And the first player, again, will get a chance to describe how you managed to overcome that final obstacle. So that's kind of the way things are going to go. Would anybody like to be the starting player once I set the scene a little bit as the Overlord?
And we'd start by describing an obstacle and passing it to a fellow player to
narrate the way past it. Yes.
Oh yeah, I got obstacles.
Okay. So we're at about 10 minutes after 9 now. So kind of think about what you might want to do or the kind of obstacles you might want to have. We'll take a quick. We'll take maybe how's a 10-minute break for folks? Okay. We'll take a 10-minute break. Let's say we'll make it a round number. Say come back at 9:20, and that'll be slightly more than 10 minutes, but I think we'll make it. And we'll begin with our long journey narrative then. All right. See you guys in 9 minutes. Okay, we'll go with our long journey here. Alexi, Depardieu is going to be our first along this narration, and I'll kind of give you a sort of a setup. Just kind of not. I'm not going to get too specific because I really want you guys to take the floor here. But the first, I think what led you guys to have to change your original plan on this journey? So that's kind of my frame for this. Like there was a straightforward, pretty straightforward, easy way to get to Rhino from here, even if it was going to take a while. What made you have to change those plans?
Yeah, I think on the initial route we're following, we see this yawning crevice has opened up, and there's just molten magma coursing through it. You know, some kind of seismic disturbance here in Camdir has fissured the path that we wanted to walk, and now we have to somehow either ford the raging river of lava or find an alternate route. So that's my obstacle there.
Okay, and who would you pass the microphone to narrate how the fellowship is bypasses this obstacle?
I'll give this to Regina.
All right.
See, and I'll add in, like, this is entirely like y'all's narrative authority. So narrate it to make the fellowship look badass and awesome. You guys know what you can do. You are the paragons of your respective peoples, except for maybe Odell, because but she's the best surfacer that's in Camdia right now. So you guys are the best of the best, and feel free to narrate just how awesome you guys are being. It doesn't have to be like we just barely made it. You can make it as awesome as you want to.
Not sure what to do with a giant fissure. That's a tough obstacle. Guess we'd look for a existing bridge or something somewhere that might cross it.
Okay. I think you can easily locate a place. Because it's apparently a seismically formed fissure. Like, there's no bridge, but it as a naturally occurring fissure, there are parts of it that are smaller than others. So you can certainly find something like that, and there are certainly materials around you guys could use to bridge it. There may be a point where you could throw a rope across and do all that stuff. And of course, you dwarves are super scientists, so you could have some gadget somewhere. There's all sorts of craziness available. So feel free to narrate your gear. You don't have to actually use up resources for this. Like I said, this is just narrative. So if you've got this useful thing in your backpack, you can just say you use it, but it doesn't count as a use during the long journey, because this is all about telling a cool story about how you get there, and the cool stuff that you do to bypass all these obstacles, which would have hamstrung or completely defeated a lesser group of adventurers.
All right, I guess we find a spot where the fissure's small enough we can just get a bridge across or something.
Okay. All right. So you've bridged that gap with either like a large tree or some other thing that you were able to drop across the top of the chasm and make your way across, I guess. Okay. And see, Regina, what would be the next obstacle that you guys encountered that frustrated your progress?
The wolf general guy is back and he's trying to hunt us down.
Oh,
I guess I'll hand it off to Odell.
okay. Yeah, he is always a hunter, and he is really mad with you guys.
Okay. Let's see. He's really mad at us. But he doesn't have his pack now, does he? Well, does that sound repel him too?
It seemed to basically cause him the same general reaction it did to the rest of the pack last time. Like his ears are sensitive because he has wolf ears. So like it seemed to cause him some serious issues last time.
We have this transmitter, and like we've had a little bit of time to look at it now, I think, and can we say it has like a separate speaker?
Why wouldn't it?
So that little bridge that we made that's like at the narrowest part of the chasm, obviously we kicked the bridge down after us, but it's still the narrowest part of the chasm and he could just as easily do the same thing. But we leave the speaker there and like just keep transmitting to it that awful feedback sound as we go away. And like eventually it's going to get out of range and it's going to stop playing, but hopefully we'll be far away by then.
Seems reasonable. See, what would be the next, Odell? What would be the next obstacle that the Fellowship has to fight their way past?
Because we had to go a little bit out of our way, we're kind of off the beaten path a bit, and going to this like it's not quite a forest of fungus, but it's like because the mushrooms aren't tree height, but they're substantial sized, except that they're all kind of, how mushrooms just get slimy and black really fast. They're all like that, and that wouldn't be a problem. It's slippery, it doesn't smell great, but wouldn't be a problem, except that with rotting fungus comes fungus gnats, which down here are human-sized.
Okay, so I guess naturally we have to pass that along to Dapperdo to deal with these giant fungus gnats, which can't be pleasant for a large fungal orc to have to confront.
There's nothing we hate more than fungus gnats, but fortunately I have a bunch of axes. So I think like when we get to this forest, my nose like pricks up a little and like fungus gnats, leave them to me. And then like Dapperdo is kind of the tip of the spear, pushing the Fellowship through and just like slamming fungus gnats with his axes, and occasionally like he sees one up ahead and he like pulls out his junk cannon, loads an axe into the junk cannon, and just like blasts an axe from long distance at this fungus gnat. So we're gonna make our way not too quietly, but safely through this forest with a trail of mangled fungus gnats left behind us. Probably I'd bring in for a little bit of help, actually, my companion, which is a wolf named Princess, who will help harry the fungus gnats and kind of push them into the path of my axe when need be. And when I say wolf, to be clear, this is like kind of the remains of a wolf, animated by a fungus that has like kind of taken it over. But I treat it just like a big dog. But for anybody else, it's like pretty unsettling to look at because it's like a strange sort of undead fungal zombie wolf.
And I can imagine, like, when other people see this, they think, "Is that what's going to happen to me if I eat one of these mushrooms and become an orc? Like, is that what orcs really are?"
No, you'll be big and strong like me. If you're strong enough, of course.
Yeah, exactly, Odell. That's exactly what dwarves are probably looking at a little scants, going, "Okay, so you guys basically just blast, chop, trudge, run, scramble through this forest, through this fungal forest, with you just leave these remains of all these giant fungal gnats just in horribly mangled piles behind you. So it's a after this it's supposed to be a pretty straight shot there. Here's the issue that I think we encounter here. The Overlord had deployed their forces. The Overlord army is a scourge upon the land of Comdir. And just as the Overlord himself perverts the laws of physics around them, their army does too. And as you approach the kingdom of Rhinum, you see this army that has begun to prepare to lay siege. It hasn't set itself up to cut off Rhinum yet, but the army is there. And in its wake, there's still a path for you past the army. Like, you don't have to fight your way through them because they haven't been able to fully encircle this kingdom yet. The kingdom's too large. The Overlord has not been able to bring all of his forces to bear here yet, because, damn it, my plan has only reached stage 1, so I can't deploy my full might against you at this point. But the wake of the Overlord's deployments is present here, and you see before you this what would normally be kind of a scrub plain that would lead up to the forest kingdom of Rhinum. You have this sort of just field of utter corruption. The plants here, in the wake of that army's passage, have become corrupted, and they are. You've seen what the Overlord has done to his general and to that general's former pack of cronies. But this is something I think that is a little more profound. Like, those were the Overlord's elite. Most of the Overlord's army is not made up of those sorts of creatures. It's actually made up of just barely recognizable things that are cobbled together from what would, if you were from the surface world, and Odell may certainly recognize this, would probably look like basically junkyard parts that have been cobbled onto the remains of other things that were native to the kingdom to the land of Comdir before. Like, it could be like a woolly rhinoceros that's been merged with what might have been the parts of some sort of vehicle. Like, it's all sorts of just terrifying amalgamations of animal and machine. And the corruption that is present is that sort of warping that the Overlord does to the natural structures in Rhinum. So you would have these trees that the little scrubby trees that would normally be here. They're either dying or have been converted to some sort of crystalline style of structure. Like they're this almost. It might be fossilization if they were turning to stone, but instead they've been partially crystallized. And creepily enough, some of them look like they're still growing, even while part of them is crystallized. But their growing is in this sort of weird, perverse thing that is almost a mockery of what they were before. And you, as you're moving through this, you see signs that reveal to you, each and every one of you, that you would definitely not be able to live off the land here. Even, frighteningly enough, it's so bad that even Dapperdew looks around and is realizing that they should not partake of anything they find here. Whereas naturally they could just pick up any bit of organic material or just about anything else really, and devour it with little to no regard. This is not a place where even Dapperdew thinks that he could do that. See, Alexi, give me one thing about this corrupted zone that immediately tells Dapperdew that he will not be eating anything that he finds here.
I think we see just little pricks of crystal growing on all of the formerly organic material. Like you said, those trees have been fully transformed, but I think like any given patch of moss or bit of roadkill has like tiny little crystal spines starting to grow out of it.
Okay, so even taking a bite out of a piece of fruit that might look otherwise innocuous, you might be biting into shards of crystal inside there. You don't know. Okay, and as you're passing through here, there are signs of, you can tell that basically the overlord's corruption is reaching deeper and is perverting the natural laws in this part of Comdir. Regina, what do you see here that is showing you that the overlord is breaking the normal operation of nature here?
I guess like areas of like fluctuating gravity, like suddenly you're lighter or heavier or just floating in places.
Okay, so you have this little, like, it's almost like when you're moving, like suddenly you'll hit a patch where you think you're slipping, but really your feet aren't staying in contact with the grounds, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you might not be floating off into space, but it's noticeable and it throws off your balance and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Odell, what about this particular space leaves you, sort of leaves you with a impression of something you remember from the surface world? Like, what about this place reminds you of something on the surface world, and what was it that it reminded you of?
All of those, little crystal spines on everything, they kind of remind me a little bit of like cactus spines, but more denser. But they also look like frost when it's just like at least this happens a lot in areas where that don't get a lot of frost. There's like this thin layer of moisture just under the soil, and then it'll freeze one night and it'll expand, and you'll get these like strange curls and spines of ice pushing up the top layer of the soil and emerging from it, and it looks like some kind of ice plant almost. And I think some of that's happening here, like where there are roots underground, there's like little crystal seedlings coming up from them.
Ooh, that's creepy. Even the ice part of that is creepy. I can imagine how these crystals look.
It's pretty, but it is a little creepy. Like, it would be super creepy if it was big,
Okay, so this this space you're going through now, I think at one point early in the history of the orcs, I think the orcs actually stayed here. They had broken away from the mushroom scientists, and Rhinum had a long-standing beef with the mushroom scientists, especially after the 40s. And the kingdom of Rhinum basically, it's not quite giving you asylum because you weren't really like needing protection necessarily, but I think maybe the Orcish people did.
Orcs need protection from no one.
Yes. So I'm thinking it was more like it gave you a space to kind of regroup and decide where you wanted to go without having to constantly worry about the threat of the scientists trying to come after you again. What tales do the orcs tell about what this place used to be?
Oh, yeah, I think this, this is kind of, it's like the Fertile Crescent, right? It's like the uh, orc orc history really doesn't go back that far, but we think of this place as the kind of promising beginning to all of that. So a land of promise and opportunity from which the whole Orcish project launched.
Okay. Now, knowing that, I think, Regina, what about the scene that you're confronting about this corrupted land reminds you of the histories of the dwarves regarding the apocalypse that you fled from? Like what horrible echoes do you see in this landscape that you recall from the dwarvish histories?
Well, I mean, our homeworld was like destroyed mostly in the apocalyptic war. So I think a lot of it's familiar, not like the crystal stuff exactly, but there were biological weapons and blights and stuff like that.
Okay, so you're seeing like eerie echoes of things that used to be growing and beautiful and able to sustain life, just reduced to a remnant, a ruin of what they once were. All right. Now, you're going to have to find your way through this plane of corruption, and you can see that there's probably going to be a way to get through here. Like the entire place isn't completely blighted, so there is a path that you should be able to find. The difficult part is that you can tell that this blight has been spreading. Like you can see where it's like run up the side of a ridge, and you can tell the longer in the places it's been longer, it's obviously the life there has been reduced to a complete mockery. But in the places it hasn't been for quite as long, you can still see some weird growth on the trees or on the plants and things like that. And maybe even still see a few small animals scurrying around, looking very ragged, looking like they're starving or desperate, but they're still there. So I think what might need is someone to think about how they would find a path through here. We know this. We know that the Dwarvish people have memories of this sort of kind of apocalyptic war. So there might be something in the Dwarvish histories that can shed light on how to navigate through this kind of blighted and inherently dangerous landscape. The orcs have their legends of this place and all the old orcish paths that crisscrossed it. And Odell, this you've seen you've seen some really crazy stuff since you got down here. This whole place is really weird, and maybe as an outsider, you're able to notice something about this that you could take advantage of that someone who is from here just just doesn't recognize because it's just so commonplace. They just look right past it. What? See, who would like to try to see if they can sort out a possible path or the beginnings of a path through this space? And what we'd be looking at, if you were thinking of your basic moves, you could probably make this type of roll with a look closely or an overcome. Either one of those two actions would generally work. The look closely is rolled with sense, and it lets you ask a few questions which can prove enlightening about the situation. And if one of the great mechanics about this fellowship system is if two players choose to cooperate on a single action and they have mutual bonds with each other, they can roll with hope, meaning that whoever decides to make the roll to, in this case, possibly determine a path forward, they will get to roll 3 dice and take the best of the two of the 3.
I'm in, and I'm happy to either make the roll or just to be helping someone so they get to roll with hope.
Okay, who among you might be a good choice to try and roll something with sense?
My sense is pretty good.
Okay.
Let's see here. Oh yeah, it might help if I actually had the tab open. There it is.
Okay, so
am I rolling? I'm rolling with hope, right?
yes, you'd be rolling with hope, and you'd be rolling sense. Okay.
8.
All right. So that you succeed partially. So you get to ask a question here. Actually, you get to ask.
Find one of these answers the hard way.
Yeah. See,
okay.
there's the edge. That's the edge right there. You get to ask 3 questions from the list. One of those you're going to find out the hard way, and we'll see which one of the questions is the hard way question.
Okay.
There's a list of questions there. Which of those would you like to ask first?
Is something hidden or out of place?
Okay. And the second part of that question is, if so, what looks suspicious?
Okay.
I think, I mean, this whole place looks terribly out of place in next to the beautiful forest kingdom that you can kind of see in the distance. You can still see that sort of green and gold and brown and rhinum like out in the distance. You can see those colors on the horizon. And in this place, the suspicious things are the things that are still growing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you kind of had that sense before, but there are a few like pockets that you can observe where you can see what you think is furtive movement in the shadows of some of those corrupted trees. And some of those trees look like they're still bearing fruit.
Okay.
And there are, so you see furtive movement around a few of those. So there are like 2 or 3 spaces where some of the old like low-lying trees, you can see some sort of movement underneath them. And near those also are like, you know, the space around them is more barren than the rest of the space. So
yeah. So look at the others. I'm like, okay, we need to don't go under the trees.
And those are noticeable. Like you can point them out, and like both of you, everybody else can see. Oh, that is a lot different than the other tree. Like, so, okay.
Okay. Cool. Like, what are they doing? So you said there are living animals here, right?
Yes, you've
Okay.
seen a couple of small animals, nothing big yet, but lots of small, like what you would. the equivalent of like a raccoon or possum, like the low level predator / omnivore that you would expect to be scrambling around in desperate straits.
Okay. That kind of answers that question, I think. Oh, sure. What are they doing and what will they do next?
Okay. About the animals and things moving that you see.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, the animals all look desperate. Some of them show some minor signs of corruption, like you think maybe they've eaten a piece of this fruit or something like that fell off early on. So you can see like some of that sort of weird crystalline growth, like in their fur, almost like a patch of like some sort of like stick of, like if you've ever seen like an animal whose fur has got into like syrup or something and the syrup has dried, like you see patches of their fur like that.
Okay.
It looks really, it looks at one point, like you can see it, and it looks kind of, just like they're just kind of dirty, but you see a few of them where it's become more pronounced and it's literally like starting to grow into and maybe out of them. And it's, you can tell that their movements are painful and they are desperately trying to find any sort of food. Like they're sniffing at everything. You haven't gotten close enough for them to come at you yet, but they look like they're desperate enough. To your eyes, like you would look at these animals and think, oh, these might have rabies. Like they have that sort of like awkward, like, that sort of awkward pacing to their movement that they could be dangerous if you get too close. And you can tell that they are desperately hungry and maybe desperately thirsty as well, because you're not seeing a whole lot of open sources of water out here either.
Oh yeah. Okay.
They will definitely try. You are suspecting they will almost certainly try to attack you or steal from you if you get close enough to where they notice you.
Okay. Avoid the trees, avoid the animals.
One more.
Yeah.
And this is probably going to be the one that's going to be the hard way, I think.
Yeah. Well, because I'm going to ask, tell me about something. How could it hurt me? How could it help me? But I'm trying to think of what exactly to ask that about. So yeah, living things, bad. Formerly living things, worse. What about non-living things like the ground, rocks, etc.? Is there areas that don't have either plants or animals on them?
There are. You've noticed some of those, like I want to say excessively barren patches is kind of how they look, and you encounter some of the this is the thing you find out the hard way. I think you come up on a patch that looks kind of barren, but it's also away from the trees, and none of the animals seem to be close to it. So you're trying to pick that. Yeah, you're thinking, okay, this is a path we can get past without getting too close to either one of those tree things or one of the animal things. And you take a couple of steps onto this successfully barren patch, and you hear sort of a crackling underneath your feet, like you're walking across bubble wrap.
Okay.
Like a pop, pop, crackle, pop, and then you fall. Great. Like quicksand type stuff. And I think you'll need to pay a price to avoid taking direct damage to one of your physical stats.
We were working in concert, correct?
Right. So anyone who is working with her can choose to pay the price by equipment or stat damage or whatever other price you think you would be reasonable for you to pay to rescue her.
Yeah.
Basically, this is like a quicksand thing. It's like pop, pop, crackle. Boom.
So it's the ground itself seems to be swallowing Odell.
But it's not. It's like she's falling through it. It's like It's like she was walking across like a really thin ice, maybe.
Yeah.
And then
I'd be willing to pay a price if this sounds okay. Maybe I like real quick load an axe into my junk cannon, and then fire it straight down, and we see there's like a chain attached to the back of the axe, so that the axe itself will like disappear into the void and be gone, but Odell can cling to the chain and maybe they can pull themselves back up that way.
Sure. One of your orc-made weapons, you'll lose one use of those. I think you start off with like 3 or 4 of them, if I remember right.
Yep, I'll mark that down.
Okay.
Losing an axe, but hanging on to a squire.
All right.
Okay, so that was
back up that chain.
yeah, that was scary.
Yeah.
So the effect, like when you observed it, anybody who's seen The Princess Bride and remembers the lightning sand, like that's kind of what happened. Like it was just you walked out, you heard that little slight noise, and then that's how quickly it went. And when you look down into the hole that's left, once you're able to get Odell up and get them to safety, you see that there was that layer, like you had seen those crystals break through. Like there was a layer of crystal down there, and underneath it was something else that this corruption had taken hold of and reduced to that crystalline matter. And it was whatever it was messed up enough to just form this little weird bubble down there. And basically, you have this cavity that had a slight thing on there. And that's how you discover that those really barren patches that sort of, and you can recognize this sort of like rise in them. Like, you restart after you saw that and you look at others and you're like, oh, that those barren patches, let's avoid those ones that have that little slight rise to them, like in the middle. So that's how you learn to avoid those. Okay, so I think that looked closely kind of you've got a basic way to navigate now. You know which things are really dangerous, which things to avoid.
So it seems like we should avoid trees and animals and places where there aren't trees or animals.
Yeah. Seems like that's about the size of it.
Good job, Odell.
Ideally, avoid the whole place, but you're stuck with having to get through this. So, okay, I think that's you've navigated yourselves, I think, through this outer layer of this corruption, and the creatures, like, they stay kind of just out of sight. You can tell some of them have noticed you and are kind of following you, but none of them are brave or desperate enough to actually like approach you right now. Like y'all are still threatening enough apparently, or they're not quite desperate enough to make a run on you just yet. And I think you get through that initial field, and you come across something that it looks like it was some sort of maybe bivouac or something for a part of the Overlord's forces. It's since been abandoned, so there's no one here now. But they definitely bivouacked here for some reason. And I think, Regina, you see something in this abandoned camp that leads you to believe that the Overlord has made some discoveries that are unsettlingly echoing some elements of dwarvish science. What is it?
I think I find like some abandoned equipment and stuff that suggests he's been experimenting with like the areas where reality is breaking down, trying to like turn them into portals to other worlds, like dwarves have used.
Okay, now I'm more unsettled than I started. Okay, as the Overlord, I'm super intrigued by this. Okay, so I think so. You're recognizing bits of possible portal tech. Ooh, okay, you have to make a note of that. So you see that. You see that there. It's very, from your perspective as a dwarf, it's super primitive. They're nowhere near where they would have to be to really get that stuff to work. But they're looking at it. And give Alexi just a second here. One. Okay. And as you come up on this space, Alexi, Dapperdew recognizes this this location, this space where this bivouac was set up as an ancient site of significance to the orcs from the time they spent here. What was the significance of this particular bivouac site to the orcs? What was here when they were here, and what made them consider this site as something special?
I think it was the observatory where every day one of the orcs would take a shift to keep an eye on the undermoon to make sure it didn't try any funny business.
Oh, did they set up some sort of like standing stones to track its movements so that they could mark its passing?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so we're dealing with like a semi Stonehenge type situation.
It's got kind of a Stonehenge feel, but there are like kind of circular windows bored into the stones, so you see where the moon would have aligned, and so the orcs could make sure it wasn't changing up its pattern or trying anything, trying to pull a fast one on them.
Okay, that makes them stopping here and researching portal tech a little creepier. I like it. Maybe the Overlord is working with the dastardly Undermoon. Sounds like an idea to me.
If the Overlord and the Undermoon joined forces. No, perish the thought.
So I think Odell, from here, I think you see you kind of see you kind of get a straightforward vision of kind of how to make it through the remainder of this. But I think you also notice signs of where the Overlord's forces pass toward next, like the direction of their movement. What sort of war machines or war beasts have passed through here, and what about that? What were those beasts, and what makes Odell suddenly worry about the Forest Kingdom if these things have been deployed?
So the Overlord, when they feel like being whimsical, turn things into other things, like trees into crystals, lakes into plastic. But when they're in a little bit more of a hurry, they go for a bit more of a blunt approach. And they send out their elephant bulldozer hybrids to just knock the trees out of the way.
Okay, so
and you can see this like swath of trees falling in front of these things.
Okay, so you can see like where the outer rim of the Rhinumian forest begins. You can see where a path has been knocked through it, and you can see these footprints. And you think maybe these things have maybe some elephant feet, and then some of them have tank tread type things?
Yeah. The ones in front, it's, footprints, big elephant footprints. And then, kind of on either side, there's the tank tread ones.
So the first wave knocks things over, and the second wave sort of crushes it down out of the way.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. So you find the way past this, and unfortunately, with this first push, it's a pretty straightforward path to follow now, because they've pushed through here, and it's really easy to go right through here to get through the kind of outer rim of Rhinum. And I think at one point you can tell that the elephant dozers have been stalled, because the path of destruction starts to lessen, and you can kind of hear these horrible noises that the elephant dozers make, and like it's a combination of like a trumpet noise and the noise of a piece of heavy machinery, and I think you're going to have to try and bypass them to try and get to the Sylvan Sapphire in the midst of this forest before they do. So, how do you think the Fellowship would be best able to bypass this relatively small segment of the army? Like you can kind of just from observing the tread behind the elephant dozer monsters, you can tell there's maybe like just a surprisingly small unit of the Overlord's forces that have made it this far. You suspect maybe the bulk of the forces are harassing the Rhinumian capital itself in an attempt to keep the Rhinumian kingdom busy while they make a play for the Sapphire. But for whatever reason, you're looking at in the scale rules of this. What is effectively here is a gang. You're looking at roughly about 50 to 60 troops. And the units you can see look like they're not built to necessarily like be like elite warriors. Mm-hmm. These things look like they're more about sort of spreading this corruption. Like the elephant dozers, as you're walking through, they're leaving a trail of just some sort of like gunk. Maybe it's the remnants of the whatever fuel they use to run their machine parts. Maybe it's some sort of like weird mucus that allows these things to actually work and still move around and remain animate after what's been done to them. But wherever that material is, you can see that corruption beginning to set in from when they pass this way. Now, you can see ahead of you this group, and they're about to breach this sort of giant tree citadel. And from your vantage point, you can see that citadel contains this huge glowing. It looks almost like a teardrop that's hanging on the trunk of this tree. this huge, like, double-sized sequoia-looking tree. Like it's a monstrously huge tree. And this globule, it looks like it's sap, but it is blue, and it sort of glows with this sort of pulsing light.
Cool. Back on the surface, I had some friends who, some people call them eco-terrorists, some people call them activists. They were really good at fucking up bulldozers. And we've got someone here who's really good at explosives.
It is always fascinating to hear tales of the fantastic land you came from. Are you suggesting we explode the elephant dozers?
I don't think we could explode the entire machine, but mess up the treads. They're not going anywhere.
Or even if we could just spook them, scatter them, that would buy us a lot of time.
Yeah, that's better. I like that.
Okay. It sounds like based on what you're describing that you would be trying to keep the elephant dozers busy and get them out of the fight, so the enemy's heavies would not be able to interfere. Does that sound like what you're doing?
Sure.
Absolutely.
See, Lexi, what do you think? Is that sound like the main goal is to just basically keep a section of the army busy?
Keep them busy. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. One of the basic moves is keep them busy. It is rolled with the courage stat, and its basic description is when you act as a distraction or buy some time. Tell us how you do that and roll plus courage. Like all other rolls, it is subject to the hope mechanic if two players with bonds choose to cooperate. And whichever party decides to make that roll will roll with hope if they are working with someone with whom they share a bond.
So I think that the hard part is going to be, getting something that explodes to it and getting away. So I think one of us is going to have to sneak in and like plant explosives if that's the direction we're going. Although if someone has an idea to intimidate them rather than bomb them, I would be all over that.
Come on, we got to blow them up.
Sure.
I feel like, I don't know, like, do you two want to team up on this? Because, one of you is stealthy and one of you has explosives.
Works for me.
Okay.
I'm not stealthy, but if this is with courage, then I'm good on that.
Yeah, I think the main point of the move is to see how well you keep them busy with what you're doing, and for that purpose, this takes guts. I mean, you're having to sneak up on these giant, half mechanical monsters that used to be some form of elephant or mammoth.
Yeah, I mean, these bulldozers have eyes. Yeah. Although they also have ears, but they're making so much noise, I'm not worried about that at all.
Yeah, it's unlikely they will hear you coming. The main worry is just basically being able to get up close to them without the rest of these the rest of this gang basically seeing you. And a lot of the gang seems to be focusing on trying to get into this sort of tree temple and getting up to that sapphire. And you can see some of them are like man-shaped or anthropomorphized animals with mechanical or parts that are trying to claw their way up the side of the tree, just like grabbing onto the tree and climbing up. And you see from the middle range of the tree and on up, you see some of the Rhinumians trying to basically repel them as best they can. But the attendants here you can tell these are not warriors. These look like some sort of priest. And they are using like staves and oil to slicken the side of the tree. Like this, it's not oil, excuse me. Like the rhyming humans wouldn't use that, but it's some sort of like incredibly slick substance that keeps them from making any real headway on climbing. But the Overlord's forces are also trying to get into the temple itself, and they're making a bit more headway there. They've got like some sort of large beast trying to batter down that door. It hasn't battered it down yet, but it's probably making more headway than the creatures trying to climb up to the windows, because the priests can at least deploy what resources they have to keep them from getting in there at this point. But they're going to run out of whatever that stuff is eventually. So that's kind of where you are. The people that would more easily notice you are kind of occupied. So you've got a pretty good inroad to where the elephant dozers are, and we can make that roll. If Regina and Odell are both making it, whichever one of you makes the roll, we'll roll with hope, because you currently share mutual bonds.
Cool.
I got +0, so you might want to roll if you feel out of blood.
I've got +2, so yeah, I can roll. So Regina's making explosives and I'm planting them. It sounds like.
That seems reasonable.
Okay. 8. Oh no, 5.
Oh dear.
5. Wait, that is with hope? Wow.
Oh my God, you rolled a 1, and a 2. Oof.
Oh wow, that's bad.
Okay. All right. So I think here's what happens. We get you get the explosives set, but as you're trying to get away, like one of the machine parts fires off like in sparks, like you didn't notice they were doing that. Or one of the electrical parts like shorts or something happens, and some sparks fly off of a part of the machine that's attached to this elephant creature, and it prematurely ignites some of the explosives. And I think Odell is going to get hit by some shrapnel, and is going to have to damage a stat or pay a price to avoid that.
I mean, it's damaging a stat probably makes the most sense here.
Okay, I'll let you pick the stat. It could be any one of your stats. You just let me know which one you mark.
I already have a -1 grace, but I think it's got to be grace. I think I get hit. If I get hit in the arms or legs or something, I'm like even less agile than usual.
Okay. Now, the effect of damaging a stat means that whenever you roll with that stat until it's healed, you are rolling with despair. So we just that, and the character sheet takes that into account if you check the damaged box. So,
okay.
But that's the in-game effect. Okay, so you get hit with this wave of shrapnel from that thing. And unfortunately, it doesn't destroy the creatures, but it sets them off as far as like a panicked animal response. And the 3 that are here that have been mowing this path, they all 3 go off in different directions. And unfortunately, like one of them is charging back to where Regina was and back to where Dapperdew are.
I charge forward to meet it.
Okay. All right. So
Treachery!
Yes, you will get to roll. Each of you will need to roll an overcome to avoid these rampaging creatures. They're not actively charging at you, but they're just huge, and it's hard to get out of their way.
I'm actively charging at it. I'm going to fight it.
Okay, so you want to try and well, let's see. There are a couple of options with this, and I'll kind of describe the in-game options to you with regards to how to deal with this. I think in order to actually finish one of these creatures, you have to have advantage over them. That's a fictional superiority. Right now, they are panicked, but they're panicked in a way that makes them more dangerous, not less. So you don't. I don't think you have a current advantage over them in order to finish them.
I have a move for this.
Ooh.
There's a orc move, Dishonor Before Death. When you try to kill someone in glorious combat, you can break your weapon to roll to finish them, even if you do not have an advantage.
Okay. I think that works. You will break one of those crazy orcish axes.
I think it's the big one, right? Like, I think
it's going to have to be big. I'm presuming that.
Dapper like reaches behind him and like pulls up an axe that's like way bigger than you would expect any axe to be, and it's like, where was the axe hiding? We don't know.
No,
but it's
be honest. What he really did is he put two axes together, and he just tied a rope to them, and that's really just two different axes that he's strapped together at the last second here.
I think like it's like a running leap where he's like, no foul beast can strike treacherously against Odell. Face the wrath of the orcish people. As I, leap off of a rock to bring this axe, cracking down against the elephant dozer.
Okay, so the finish the move is keyed off of the result you're trying to achieve. There are multiple ways this could go. If you are trying to kill them, just actively kill them.
Yeah,
you'll roll plus blood.
I think that's usually what happens when I swing a giant axe at something.
Well, there's also trying to disable them because these are huge creatures. So like you could legitimately just be trying to take a leg out and knock, and so they can't keep moving. But if you just want to kill them, you'll roll with plus blood. On a 10 or plus, you're going to kill them. On less than a 10, you will damage them and lose your advantage, but they won't be completely taken out.
Yeah, go. I'm going for the killing blow.
All right, roll plus blood.
Knocking down an axe to do it. All right. What do I type something in to roll plus blood? How does that work?
Actually, what you do is you pull up your character sheet.
Oh, wait. I see. There's a little dice.
And you click the dice next to blood.
Are you rolling with hope or despair? Neither, right?
Right. You're just rolling a regular roll.
All right. Regular roll with blood. Attacking the elephant dozer. Oh, that's a 5.
Okay. All right. So you lose the axe because that's a consequence of the move.
Yeah.
So you sacrifice that. All right. So this move does actually give us a description of what can happen on a 6 or less. It says on a 6 or less, you lose the advantage, which automatically happens because you have to break your axe to even have it in the first place with that particular version of the move.
Mm-hmm.
And you must face retaliation. So I think you just leap up and it looks amazing. I think you drive this axe into this thing's skull, but you hear this really unsettling clang. Just as you get in, just as you think you're getting into the you think the axe blow is going to crack its skull, you hear this just terribly unsettling clang impact. It rattles that axe, and the blade on the axe breaks from the impact because it's not built to be chopping metal.
Yeah.
And that was from the impact. That was a heavy metal plate of some sort. And you take the full impact of this thing. I think you're gonna have to damage a stat here.
A stat of my choice, or
yes, you can choose any of your stats to damage. Just give me an explanation as to why that particular stat is the one that takes the hit here.
I'm gonna damage courage because this is really unsettling, and it's unusual for Dapperdew to fling himself into glorious combat and not be able to destroy an opponent. So I think his confidence is shaken.
Yeah, so, and this thing keeps going. Like it basically knocks you aside, and the axe is still, like, what was left of the axe is still buried like in its skull plate, and it just keeps going off in that same direction. it was charging that direction, and by God, it's not going to stop until something makes it. Okay, now the one charging at there's one more, and it is charging in Regina's direction. Now, Regina, how do you want to deal with this? You can roll an overcome to basically avoid it. Or if you have some other move that might help with it, feel free to throw a suggestion, and we'll see how it works out.
I guess I'm gonna have to overcome.
Okay. All right. When you attempt to avoid, redirect, or prevent harm something will cause, you roll plus blood. So, do you have a move that would change that that roll, or are you just going to roll with plus blood?
Just plus blood.
Okay. All right. What did you roll twice?
Oh, I thought it didn't go through the first time.
Oh, yeah, it did. It did. I see it there. It's
The first one was an 8.
Yeah, we'll keep that first one. Don't need anybody else getting run over by elephants. Okay, so you succeed. So let's take a look and see on overcome. On a 7 to 9, you have to you can pay a price to take the 10 plus result, or create a temporary solution. A temporary solution will delay the threat, but when its time is up, it'll be back in force, and I get to tell you when. So do you want to pay a price and take the 10 plus, or temporarily avoid it and then have to deal with it again whenever I decide it's good?
I'll pay the price.
Okay. What price would you like to pay? Do you want to damage a stat, sacrifice some equipment, or something else?
I've got like a reinforced. I got some armor. I think I'll just like spend the armor that it was, to soak it.
Sure. Okay. You let's say you basically manage to get mostly out of the way, and the armor sort of blunts the force of the impact as it charges past, and you're hurled into the undergrowth, but the armor protects you from taking anything more than like a slight bruising. Okay. All right. Now, on the one hand, part of your objective was achieved. Those things have run off on their own. Yeah, I hadn't had that idea, Bethany. So, I appreciate you adding those to the to our mix. So those have charged off. I think there are a few of the other units. I keep calling them units because I'm used to that term, but a few other of the stragglers of the Overlord's forces that haven't made their way up to the door, that were waiting for that beast that's basically banging its head into the door to break the door down. They were hanging back, obviously heard the explosions and have looked down and seen the elephants go charging off in the other directions. And I think one or two of them, right? We'll say about 6 of them have noticed you. Especially I think Odell is sort of just scrambling to their feet and bleeding from all those little shrapnel cuts. Regina, I think, got knocked into the undergrowth, so they're not immediately visible. And Dapperdew is like a almost 7 feet tall mushroom guy who's basically forlornly looking after that charging mammoth that has his axe. And I think so. I think they spot Odell and Dapperdew, and are running towards you. And so I'll give you guys a chance to think about what you want to do with that. Regina, you're kind of out of the view of those things. What does Regina want to do? You've got a bit of a reprieve based on you actually making your roll to avoid the mammoths. What do you want to what do you want to do in this slight reprieve you've got as the Overlord's forces notice your companions and are going after them?
I guess I try to get back to the group.
Okay. What do you think? Are you trying to join directly back up with them, or are you trying to ambush the guys that are coming after them? What do you think you want to do?
I guess if I can, I'll get ahead of him and try to lay a trap or something.
Okay. Well, they haven't noticed you, so I think you've got a chance to got a chance to do something maybe a little bit more improvised than you're used to. I don't know that you have a chance to lay a trap. I think the trap requires you to have like some safety to actually set it up. But I think you can improvise. You can easily improvise something to kind of keep them busy to give your friends a chance to get ready for them.
Okay. I guess I'll just set up with me and my gunner to like just provide some covering fire or something.
Excellent. I think that works very well. So I think you can roll with keep them busy. I think your gunner might give you a bonus to some of these rolls. I think your companions generally give you a little bit of a bonus to some of these. What does your playbook say the gunner and your defender give you?
It doesn't say anything about that.
Okay. Let me take a
What
look.
are the stats connected to your companion? Those are the little phrases with boxes next to them.
Sturdy rifle.
Yeah, you can check that off. I mean,
Yep.
it's called damaging it, but it's checking it off. You can check off that either any of those tags companions are carrying around, and it helps create an advantage related to what it says.
Okay.
Yeah. So if what you would do is in this case, I think you would make the roll, and that could be a price you paid. If a price needs to be paid to do what you want to do.
Okay.
The companions kind of give you that extra option, and they can also kind of help you fictionally get an advantage if you sacrifice their stats. If you wanted to roll a finish them against somebody, if you thought it was appropriate.
All right,
It helps to have people with guns shooting at people for you.
All right, I'll roll courage.
Okay, so do you want to you're concentrating on keeping them busy, correct?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. All right, so I'll let you roll with that, and let's see. That gives you a 7. Let's see what we get here with keeping them busy on a 7. All right, you buy some time, and their attention is all on you and your gunner and defender for now. The disadvantage in this case of not rolling a 10, is that they will retaliate against you. So just kind of be ready. For them to follow up. I think what happens fictionally is they start to sort of charge out towards Odell and Dapperdew, and then I think you clip the first one with one of the bullets, and like start peppering them with other fire, and then they have to sort of like scramble around to get behind cover, and they're still coming, but now they're focused on the scrub brush where you guys are firing from, because after the first couple of shots, they know where the shots are coming from, and they're trying to scramble around through their cover, whatever cover they can get to get to where you guys are. So they're kept busy for a little bit, but once that short period is over, they're going to be coming after you now. Okay, you don't have to pay a price for that, so your companion stats remain undamaged. So you've got those in reserve for when you need them. Okay, all right, Odell, what you see that Regina and her companions are peppering those that little group with some cover fire, and making them scramble a little bit. So you've got some room that you might be able to take some action. What do you think Odell wants to do now?
Okay, so the Overlord's forces coming at us are the ones that were climbing the walls, or
they're the ones that were kind of waiting in reserve behind that big beast that's headbutting the door.
Okay.
And so they were kind of hanging back, waiting for hopefully that door to get battered down, so that they can get in and get me that sapphire.
Okay, I'm kind of wondering, and the scale here is all it's like sizes.
Can I have made my way over to Odell just to like regroup?
Sure. You guys were both kind of still out in the open, so because you you guys didn't make your rolls to avoid
Right.
avoid the consequences. So yeah, you guys are out there. You can be together, and you see likewise the results of Regina's covering fire.
Yeah. Okay. Um.
How's your throwing arm, Odell?
It's never been great, but how far are we talking?
Just far enough to keep those moon-blasted minions of the Overlord on their toes.
Well, I have a spear. You have an axe. Do you think you could bring down some of these trees on them?
Now we're talking.
Yeah, I will.
An axe, and I look at like 6 axes hanging on you.
But I like pull an axe out. I'm like,
I miss my favorite axe.
You'll put together a new favorite axe.
I will. That's true.
So
yeah.
should
What's the
I
plan?
sneak up and distract them? What from you laying a trap? Basically a tree.
Well,
I mean, it's not that much of a trap if I'm just chopping a tree down so it falls on them.
well,
Yeah.
I will say this right now: those guys are kept busy. So I think it's y'all do have the opportunity to take a shot at finishing them because you've got the advantage of them focusing now on Regina and the gunner.
Cool. I mean, I have yet to just directly fight anything, and I think this is probably the time to do that. One of the smaller ones, probably.
Okay. Yeah, they're of all different sizes. Some of them are like obviously scrawnier and maybe were kind of sick or wounded when they were taken by the Overlord and turned into these things. So they're of all different sizes. The bigger, bulkier ones are really more the frontliners.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, this is from the group that was waiting to sort of swarm into the building after that big beast finishes bashing down the door.
Okay.
Do we want to each roll finish them to just like hopefully take out enough of these to say we've routed the group?
Yeah, I think that's basically what you're doing, and I think based on the way it sounds like we're describing it with axes and spears, I think you're probably rolling with blood because you're trying to basically kill them. You're not trying to talk them out of anything or just distract or overwhelm them. You're just trying to basically bash them into oblivion.
Pretty much, yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Okay, so let's start with Odell. You roll with roll plus blood.
Okay. 9.
All right. Okay, so with rolling a 9 on finish them, you damage them. Let's see. Yep.
Oh no, you lose.
Oh no, yeah.
Yeah. Well, no. Each of you has, because of this one. Each of you has a separate. So when each of you gets a finish them roll, because you're effectively going to be fighting 2 different groups. There are roughly 6 of them, and they're so you're able to focus on individuals. So you would lose it against that individual.
Okay.
But you don't kill them, but you do damage them. And these guys basically, these guys don't only have 2 stats. So one of them is mechanical hybrid, and the other one is swarm. So I think what you're damaging here is you damage their swarm stat.
Yeah, I'm trying to pick one off, so.
Okay, I think that's perfectly reasonable. So that the one that you've targeted, you've damaged, hit them with the spear, and I think you make impact with some part. You're not sure exactly what you hit, but it seems to make them draw away, whereas they were all focusing like a laser on one target. You've hit something in this one that makes it draw away and refocus, or lose focus, depending on your viewpoint. So you damaged its swarm stat.
Okay.
All right. So, Lexi, let's see how Dapperdew does on his.
And in fact, I think I'm actually not rolling blood, because I think dropping a tree on them is slightly more subtle than Dapperdew usually goes. If it makes sense to you, I might roll sense, where the idea is I'm trying to disable them or knock them out.
Okay, or you could be rolling like to attempt to terrify them. That could work too if you wanted to push it in that direction and roll grace.
My grace is 0, so no.
Okay.
No, I think knock them out or disable them, with the hope that might even mean we have some leftover to study or interrogate after this is all done.
Okay. All right. I think you can do that. Just roll plus sense.
All right, roll in sense, with neither hope nor despair.
Correct.
That's boxcars.
All right. You do perfectly. What here's the roll result, and then you're going to tell me exactly what this looks like. So you're disabling or knocking them out. Roll plus sense. On a 10 or 10 plus, they are physically incapacitated and unable to continue. So you're dropping a tree on them. So tell me what that looks like. I figure you'll at least hit three of them with the tree, because it's a tree.
Yeah, it's one of those weird crystal trees too, right? I think it's like Dapperdew takes, like, gives it a weather eye, readies the axe, and then just like with like one swing, severs the trunk of this tree, and there's like a shattering sound as it then falls and pins 3 of these minions of the Overlord, and they're kind of still like moving feebly, clearly not dead, but the sharp crystalline spines of the tree have stabbed through them a little bit, pinning them to the ground. So even if they got the weight of the tree off of them, they'd still be kind of stuck that way. So we've got them trapped and right where we need them if we need to take a closer look at minions of the Overlord.
Okay, and that leaves one that's had one of his stats damaged, and 2 that are still undamaged. You have now. Here's the thing, because Alexi, because you rolled a 10 plus, you haven't lost that advantage. So you're. I mean, we would define this here, I guess, as basically because you're dropping a tree on them and not wading into the midst of them to beat them about the head and shoulders. You're still kind of off their radar a little bit.
Amazing that I've stayed off their radar. Well, if you don't mind, I might use a bit of gear to try another to try to finish some more of them.
Okay, we'll let me circle back around to you here.
Yeah.
Regina, a couple of these guys have been taken out by that big tree that Dapperdew just chopped down onto them. It looks like Odell has drawn one of them off. There are 2 still left, and I think they are starting to. They're about to try and basically those 2 are going to try and charge your position. What would you and your gunner like to do?
Shoot them, I guess.
Okay. At this stage, there's not really an advantage to be had over them, because they're charging and you're shooting. But well, I'd say they're trying to charge. You guys are able to shoot at them while they're running. I'll say that puts you in a position to, I think, roll to finish them.
All right.
Do you think you're finishing them by trying to kill them, or basically peppering them with fire to force them to back off?
I think I'm going for the kill.
Okay. All right. Roll finish them with blood.
Got an 11.
All right. You kill them. Those 2 charge. They were still focused on you, and they charge forward doing that sort of animal lope. And if you hadn't faced the previous pack of these type of things, maybe that would have thrown you off, like them suddenly dropping to all fours and charging might have thrown you off. And but you knew you've seen, as soon as you saw them start to lean forward, you've seen that happen with those other creatures, and you and your gunner just take them out like 2 straight shots, and they fall. Odell, you've got this guy there. You no longer have advantage, but you might. But what do you think you want to try and do? Like, he's focused on you now. He's coming towards you, and with those, clawed fingers on those weird anthropomorphic hands that they've grafted onto this poor thing.
Yeah, I don't think I can outrun it since it's like right there. So I am just going to try to stab it with the spear.
Okay. So you don't have the positioning to finish them right now because you lost your advantage last time, but you can attempt to basically run past them and draw them towards your friends with maybe a keep them busy, if you wanted to do that. Now this thing's arms are a little bit longer than you thought when you first saw him, and he's, even with the spear, like it's you've got to work to kind of keep him keep those claws away from you.
Okay. So this is keeping them busy or getting away?
You can do you can whichever one of those you think would be best for you. I think your courage stat is better than your grace right now. So
it's a lot better. my grace isn't negative, and I have despair and it's damage. So
yeah, I would. I think keep them busy. Either one of those could work fictionally for drawing them around, but keep them busy seems to be better off for you right now.
Yeah. And since I want it to follow me,
yeah, it makes sense. I think
I'm trying to like get it into a good position for Virginia to just shoot it. Partial success again.
Okay. All right. So with a 7 to 9 on a keep them busy, you do buy some time. Their attention is all on you for now. So they're definitely following you. They're focused on you, and they will come. If they haven't been taken out once you finish running them around, like they're gonna spring at you.
Yeah.
So okay. All right.
I think I'm like running, like shoot him.
So that's what you guys hear. Like you saw this thing charging after Odell, and she's like leading it around, like keeping it at spear's length, basically. But it keeps swiping at her with those claws, and she's yelling at you guys to shoot it. So which one of you wants to make a play? I think Regina, you just took out some with the pistol shots. You want to give Dapperdo a chance with that junk cannon?
Sure, yeah.
I was wondering actually about using my Orcish Moonshine.
What was that? What does your Orcish Moonshine allow you to do in this situation?
Obviously, Orcish Moonshine named after the Overmoon and not the perfidious Undermoon.
Of course, of course, we know. Like,
so it's food for orcs. It gives me the drunk tag and then the vigor tag, and has 2 uses. I can't get drunk because I'm a fungus, though, so that's helpful. But I can also replace its tags with ranged, thrown, and burning if I just turn it into a little Molotov cocktail.
Sure.
How do you? Let me just check. Is it okay if I just use its do 2 uses right in a row of just like taking a swig from it, then stuffing a rag into it, lighting that, and tossing it at this minion?
I think so. And it sounds like you're going to be finishing him because he's focused on Odell. So you have the opportunity to finish him off. You can roll plus blood. That seems like what you're doing here. I don't think setting him on fire is going to force him to retreat or disable him. It's going to kill him.
Yep. All right. I'm happy to make a blood roll. I'm clearing my damage by taking that swig to clear damage and then tossing the moonshine. So two uses to make this and making this finish them with blood move.
Okay.
Neither hope nor despair.
Correct.
All right, a 9.
Okay. You damage one of his stats. Now, luckily, he only has 1 stat left.
Yes.
So it is his mechanical abomination stat. He is a. I think basically you hit him, and that honestly the fire doesn't look like it does as much to stop him, but that ridiculously potent alcohol seeping in among all that circuitry, like just basically looks like it causes a massive short circuit and shutdown. Like the fire catches on to the organic parts and that starts to burn afterwards, but really what looks like took him down was basically shorting out all those electronics with that big splash of alcohol. So he is down. You guys are confronted with this visual as that beast is finally basically smashing through that door, and you hear cries from inside the temple of horror and despair as those guys start to try and swarm past this beast. Luckily, this beast is huge, so it's got to move out of the way before they can get in there. Its head is stuck through the door that it just bashed in, and it's going to have to pull its way out to let them in. So that's where we'll come into next time. Okay, we're here at end of session. We're going to try and, if everybody's cool with that, walk through our quick end of session moves, and you guys can decide what you want to do for your end of session stuff this time. If you decide you want to use level up again, you're welcome to do so, and you just tell me next time like what your choices are as far as who levels up, if you decide to take that option again if we get it. Okay. All right. So our end of session here. Come back around to those questions. First, did we save or protect a community in need?
I think we did. We drove off some minions who were attacking Rhinum.
Yes. You might not have completely finished the job yet, but I think you've drawn off those terrible like destruction machine elephant dozers. You've killed some of that gang of underlings that's trying to swarm into this temple. So I think you did. Second question. Did you strike a blow against the Overlord and their minions? I think you got a yes there. I mean, that you kind of got a twofer with this one.
I think so, yeah.
And third, did you learn more about the world and its peoples? I think you got another yes.
Yeah, we encountered all those obstacles. We learned a little about the dwarf and orc connections to this land, and we saw the Overlorders messing around with weird portals by the old orcish Stonehenge, so that's not disturbing at all.
And you learned all sorts of wonderful things about the orcs.
That's true. Thanks for letting me join in. Glad to be introducing our version of orcs for Gauntlet Comics.
Yeah, this is going to, and so you got 3 choices to make amongst those various things. Every member of the fellowship can refresh 1 piece of gear to its full value, which could be useful. Each fellowship player can choose 1 stat to heal, and it doesn't have to be theirs. So you might be able to kind of get a second wind as you glance at your next round of battle. And third, you could choose to do the level up option again.
I think it makes sense to level up Pearl's character.
Mm-hmm. That's reasonable.
Yeah, definitely.
It's the only one left to still level 1.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I feel like we broke a lot of stuff, but
well, you have 3 choices here. So
yeah, I'm to take the gear refresh if other people are.
Okay, sounds good.
If are people up to do that?
I'd like to double up on the level up just so that the Overlord can't gain more than. I mean, if we're gonna, it makes sense to use 2 of those.
Yeah, totally. Double up on the level up and do the gear one. Because there's only one damage stat right now, and we can try to fix that for you later,
Yeah.
right, Bethany? Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, the fill your belly gives you an option to always heal like one little blip on a stat. So
I've still got 3 food left, so I'm good.
okay.
Yeah.
Now, so if you do 2 level ups, I'll tell you. Obviously, the Overlord's going to level up. You guys are would level Hamfast the Halfling up, and I would level the Overlord. And then if you chose the second round, I would pick another one of you to level up, and then you guys would pick another one of you to level up. So if you guys want to kind of peruse your available moves for the next level up and kind of see, I mean, certainly feel free to strategize like which one of you would get the coolest next move that would be useful. That's certainly permissible. And then I'll make my pick, and so we'll be ready to make that decision next time if you guys are comfortable with it. So you got 2 level up options, and we'll make the calls on who those level ups are overall for next time. Does that sound good?
That sounds
Yep.
good.
That works.
Okay. All right. All right. I'm going to stop the recording here, and we'll be ready for next session. Thank you guys again for being here, and to everybody watching, thanks for watching, and we'll hopefully see you guys for session 3.